Nick has called from Ilford. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Sheila. I believe what we're doing in Ukraine is completely wrong. I don't think this is a winnable war for Ukraine, just based on manpower alone. We're propping up a country that will lose, that will just end up with more deaths, that eventually will end up having to have some kind of talks and succeed ground to Russia. I don't see that there can be any other outcome. So we're just causing more deaths at this point and causing a world fuel crisis in the process.
Who's we?
We, the West. We, the West. We, the West, are funding a war. The Ukrainians will not win. Just they haven't got the population to throw at it. Russia has. Russia's fighting a war of attrition here, and it's on their side. They've got the people to do it.
And why can't Ukraine fight a defensive war of attrition in response? Would you roll over if the Russians came into the UK like this? Would you roll over? Would you roll over? Would you roll over?
I think you would get to the point where if you have enough civilians killed, you would have to say, right, we need to pick the best of two evils. And that's, I think, where we are with this war.
And you think Ukrainians would be safe under Putin's boot, do you?
I'm not necessarily. I think they would be safe, actually, but I think if
why do you think that? Because he's so benign to his own people, isn't he?
Well, it's easy to demonise Putin because he's not.
I'm not. I'm basing it on what I see. I'm not demonising him at all.
I think we've got to look at realities, okay? And the reality is that this is a war that will be lost. Okay, so and look at what happened to America in Vietnam. That's a very good way to look at this. It didn't matter how much technology they threw at it. They got beaten by a third world country on pedal bikes because they had the manpower to throw at it and to win that war of attrition. And I don't think this is any different. I genuinely don't think it's winnable. So we've got to pick a red line where we say, OK, this has got to go to talks.
At what point in World War II, before we joined maybe, but at what point, looking at Hitler's march on Europe that was very successful for a long, long time and involved huge amounts of killing, before Britain even entered the fray, at what point would you have folded then?
No, well, I don't think you can equate. They're two very different conflicts.
Are they? Well, but what they involve is a dictatorship going into a democracy. In the case of Hitler, repeatedly. In the case of Putin, Ukraine. They're repeatedly because he's done Georgia, he's done South Ossetia, he's done it before. What makes you think he'd stop?
Well, we can take a deeper dive in it. I mean, it was only 10 years ago that the Telegraph was describing the Ukraine as the most corrupt state in Europe.
No, it's got terrible problems because it's got terrible problems harking back to its communist days that it's needed to fix for a long time. Absolutely, nobody's shying from that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But for all Russia,
is that a reason for it to be invaded by Russia, though?
You need to understand there was a sort of a civil war going on in Ukraine anyway to do with the Donbas region.
No, there wasn't.
There was, because there were agreements and accords at the time.
No, there wasn't.
Well, you might want to tell the civilians that were being shelled by the Ukrainians in the Donbas region since 2014.
You think Ukraine started that pressure in 2014, do you?
I think it was to do with, there was a lot of meddling going on in Ukraine.
Is your name actually Nicoliavic, not Nick from Ilford? I ask myself. Thank you, Nick, for your call. Funny how people read history and current events, isn't it?